What's up, everybody? I'm John Hoover. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Man, we got some heavy-duty stuff to get to today. 1, Kennedy Brooks. Wow. And 2, Trey Sermon. And then 3, Grant Calcaterra. I'm going to quote you an NCAA rule for that one. And then, hey, we heard from Lincoln Riley on Saturday. I'm going to play you a couple of highlights. That's coming right up. First things first, this channel's going away. Please take a second, click on the card above, subscribe to my other channel. Everything you guys have enjoyed over here on this channel is going to be posted up there. So when this channel is gone, this is going to be the only one that I'm posting to. So please subscribe right now. Take a second if you can. Just don't subscribe and drive. Okay, best way to keep up with everything I post either here or over at SI Sooners is just follow me on Twitter at John E. Hoover or on Facebook, John E. Hoover Media. The website, our new Sports Illustrated affiliate, is called SI Sooners. You can find it at allsooners.com. Okay, let's do it. Kennedy Brooks dropped a bombshell, an absolute bombshell on Lincoln Riley's playbook on Sunday afternoon when he decided to opt out of the 2020 college football season. Not the first time we've seen a star do this, but in Oklahoma it was. The news reported Sunday afternoon by my guy Jason Kersey of The Athletic. I was able to confirm it with a source later on. So, barring any kind of change of heart by Kennedy Brooks, he will not be suiting up for the Sooners this college football season, if there is a college football season. This is a big one. If he had stayed healthy this year, I think Brooks was probably going to become just the 4th guy in school history to rush for over 1,000 yards 3 times in his career. You know who else is on that list? Damon Parker, Adrian Peterson, Samaje Perine. That's it. That's the list. Brooks averaged 8.9 yards a carry as a redshirt freshman. Remember now, that led the nation for most of the year in 2018 before he slid back a little bit, ended up 3rd in the country. I remember Lincoln Riley saying midway through the 2018 season that watching Brooks run with the football was like watching your Labrador running in the park, just kind of loping around, moving at his own pace. And then you look up and he's got 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kennedy Brooks isn't real big. He's not real fast. He's not real quick. He's not real powerful. But the thing that sets Kennedy Brooks apart is his vision. He doesn't really need to make those, hard, sharp cuts. He doesn't have to be real sudden because for some reason, somehow he can see things developing in front of them before they happen. He can see where the blocks are. He can read where the running lanes are opening up, and he can see defenders coming from his peripheral vision. It's amazing. He really can read the angles. So that's what you get when you see those cutbacks. That's when he turns, like a 4-yard gain into a 13-yard gain. It's amazing to watch him run. So what's next for OU at the running back position? Well, first, let's touch on Lincoln Riley's dream scenario here. Trey Sermon comes back to Norman for his senior year, runs for 1,200 yards and 16 touchdowns. That's the ideal situation. Probably not going to happen. Sermon, you'll remember, hit the transfer portal back in March. He went to Ohio State. And the Buckeyes, of course, are currently not playing football in 2020 thanks to the Big Ten Conference shutting it all down. So, can Trey Sermon come back? The answer is we don't know. The NCAA is absolutely going to figure out the transfer waiver situation, especially this year. You would think that a conference not playing football would represent a hardship and that the NCAA would immediately grant a waiver. A couple of things on this. Number one, if the Big Ten and the Pac-12 hold out and don't play this year, you would think that there might be a real mass exodus of players, especially seniors, right? Stands to reason. That means a possible logjam of waivers that are going to require possibly individual approval. Then again, the NCAA might just throw its hands up and issue a blanket statement, a blanket waiver for anyone from either of those conferences, any sport that wants to transfer. That'd be cool. Then again, the NCAA's chief medical expert, Dr. Brian Hainline, said he doesn't think there can be any college sports this year with the way things they are as they are now. So maybe in this case, the NCAA backs up their chief doc and declines all the waiver requests from players wanting out of these conferences. Like, if it's not safe for you to play in the Big Ten, we're not going to let you play in the Big 12. We're the NCAA, end of discussion, or something like that. And then number 2, does Trey Sermon actually want to come back to Oklahoma? Remember now, he fell off the depth chart with a real sudden thud last year. Does he want to play for Oklahoma? Obviously he didn't, or he wouldn't have left for Ohio State. But given no other option to play his senior year, you might think he'd just opt out, skip ahead to the NFL draft, right? That seems the most likely scenario. And then the other part of that equation, of course, is would Lincoln Riley want him back? Probably. We assume so, but hey, there's probably a reason he fell off the depth chart last year. He does have a new running backs coach as DeMarco Murray replaced Jay Boulware, but Lincoln obviously became dissatisfied with some part, undisclosed to this point, of Trey Sermon's game last year. That never got discussed much other than rumors of some shouting matches and feelings of disrespect. And then, he did leave. He did choose to take his talents to Columbus. So there's a little bit of precedent there. If you think about it, A.D. Miller last year packed up and hit the transfer portal, the wide receiver. Well, he also went to a Big Ten school, Illinois. But what happens? He changes his mind. He ends up back in Norman for his senior year. And he played a little bit last year. I think things are a little further along for Sermon, but really, honestly, who knows? As of August 17th, here's what DeMarco Murray has to work with this year. It's TJ Pledger. He's a junior. He's got a grand total of 40 carries in his career. That ain't a lot. I mean, Adrian Peterson used to have almost that in one game. Steve Owens had like twice that in one game. Okay, not really. 55 against Oklahoma State, but still. Pledger's to me, he's a good change of pace back, a nice kind of jitterbug with a little bit of power, but he's 5'9", 190 pounds. I don't know if that's the kind of build that's going to be able to carry the football, carry the load for an entire season. Marcus Major played in 3 games last year, took the red shirt. He only carried the football 10 times total in 2019. He's 5'11", about 215, so a little bigger, a little more suited maybe physically to be an every down running back. But then you get into the freshman class. Seth Mcgowan is a true freshman, very productive in high school, but never played college football before. He's a very impressive looking guy. Extremely athletic, extremely explosive, fast, strong, run you over, outrun you. He's 5'11", about 210. Played at Dallas Mesquite, so the competition was good. Rivals ranked him, I think, as the number 13 running back in the country. I believe 24/7, and ESPN had him around 15 or 16. So the kid's got some credentials. And here's something else to like about McGowan. He was seen as kind of a consolation prize in this class after Jace McClellan flipped to Alabama on signing day. Well, think about this. Oklahoma's had another guy recently who came in as the other running back behind a Johnny 5-star and ended up doing pretty well for himself after that. That 5-star couldn't play in his first year. It was Samaje Perine. Nobody touted him back then because Joe Mixon was the 5-star, but which one of those guys ended up setting the NCAA record for rushing yards in a game, as well as the school record for rushing yards in a career? Yeah, Perine. So don't count out Seth McGowan just because he's not Jace McClellan. Anyway, all 3 of DeMarco Murray's guys this year were 4-star recruits. It sounds like it'll be by committee, but I think all 3 of those guys are probably capable of making plays in Lincoln Riley's offense. Okay, another personnel issue that came up over the weekend. Grant Calcaterra said on Twitter that he's decided to return to football. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, wow, good for Grant. He's going to enter the NFL supplemental draft, and he's going to get paid for his troubles. I hope he's going to be okay after he retired from football last year after suffering 3 concussions in a 12-month span, but at least if he's going to play, this time he's going to get paid for it. No. He actually announced that he's going to enter the transfer portal, not the supplemental draft, and he will play college football somewhere other than Oklahoma. Yeah, this was pretty odd. Struck me kind of out as coming from out of nowhere. Current situation, but here's what happened. Here's the situation. OU's medical people told Calcaterra last year that he needed to quit football, just retire. Too many concussions, not safe. They were definitely looking out for his health and well-being, but Grant asked if there was any possibility if he could play in the future, and OU's doctor said basically, well, if you do, we're not going to medically clear you here, so it would have to be somewhere else. So Grant accepted his medical exemption last year, meaning he was taken out of Oklahoma's 85 scholarship total and placed on medical exemption, meaning he gets to stay on scholarship, but just not an athletic scholarship. Okay, so there's some talk going out there, rumors about an NCAA rule that says if you take a medical exemption and retire, and go back and change your mind and try to play again, that you can't play at the same school. I want to clarify for you right here, that's not true. The actual NCAA rule is this, and I quote, if circumstances change and the student athlete subsequently practices or competes at the institution at which the incapacitating injury or illness occurred, then the student athlete again shall become a counter. That means counting against the team's 85 scholarship limit, athletic scholarship limit. And the institution shall be required to count that financial aid under the limitations of this bylaw in the sport in question during each academic year in which the financial aid was received, unquote. So what this means, I hate quoting NCAA rules, so I'll boil it down for you. Grant Calcaterra actually could play this year at Oklahoma if he wanted to, and if the OU doctors cleared him, he could. But if he did that, that medical exemption that he took last year would now count against Oklahoma's 2019 scholarship limit, and would also count against Oklahoma's 2020 scholarship limit. He would no longer be on medical, so he'd be back on athletic. This year looks like there's room, but I believe OU was right at 85 scholarships last year. I could be wrong, but I think Lincoln put a couple of guys on scholarship that were previously walk-ons. So going back and adding Calcaterra to that 85 would obviously put the Sooners over the limit. That's trouble. Frankly, it's not doable if OU doesn't want to have to self-report NCAA sanctions for exceeding the scholarship limit. Could be all kinds of trouble. Like, basically that ship has sailed. So for that reason alone, he would have to transfer if he wants to play. So it's within the rules for a player to return to that school. It's just that in Grant's case, doing so would put OU over the limit. Then there's, of course, the little situation with OU's medical staff not clearing him to play. They probably wouldn't do it again this year. They don't want that on their hands. And who can blame him? It just doesn't work out for Grant. So in any case, he's going to play somewhere else. I wish him the best. My daughter had 3 concussions in a year's time while playing soccer in college, and it was really rough on her. Well, I talked to Grant about this. She had to quit going to class for like 6 weeks. I talked to Grant last year about it. He said he experienced some of the same symptoms and had similar struggles. So hope he's okay. Like I said, like he said, it's tough to give up the game you love. It means something different when you've been without the game, no question. Okay, let's hear from Lincoln Riley. The Oklahoma head coach is getting ready for his 4th year. OU is the easy favorite to win its 5th straight Big 12 Conference Championship, of course. If we get the season played out, that is, right? We don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is that when OU players returned to campus back on July 1, they had 14 initial positives for COVID-19, and then 4 weeks in a row, Sooners had 0 positives. 0. So last week they had 1, and that's when Lincoln Riley decided to give the team the week off. And then they came back Friday, and they had 9 players test positive for COVID. 9. And a few others went through some contact tracing and had to be put in quarantine. That sucks for sure. After doing so well for so long, I'm sure, right? Very disappointing, Lincoln Riley said. You know, Joe Castiglione got the season opener moved up to August 29th from September 5th. Then players reported a week early. Then they started practicing. Everything got moved up, and then everything's getting moved back. So basically, the season opener now September 12th, Lincoln Riley, you add it all up, that's a 7-week training camp. Lincoln Riley has said players have been on campus working out since July 1st. So rather than have them grind through 7 straight weeks of camp and then try to play a season, Lincoln gave them a week off. Now, when he first announced this last week, my first reaction was, well, that's dumb. You're going to have guys come back with the Rona. And that's exactly what happened. And I thought, you know, this is really the first time in his 3 full years that Lincoln Riley has made a bad decision, made a huge mistake like this. But as I look back on it, was it really a bad decision? Sure, if somebody gets really sick and has to sit out for a long time or maybe has lingering effects like the kid at Indiana, Feeney, then yeah, maybe it was a bad decision. But when we talked to him on Saturday, Lincoln talked about the players' mental health and frankly their emotional situation. He said they've been busting their butts since July 1st, not even knowing if they're going to have a season. Think about that. What that would do to you as a young athlete? The schedule gets moved around, gets moved up, gets moved back. They're practicing, they're not practicing. Then the school's starting, and now, you know, he said the players just needed a break. Honestly, this is one of those hard decisions that Lincoln Riley gets paid $6 million a year to make. I wouldn't want to be in that spot. I mean, maybe for $6 million a year, sure, I'd give it a go, but this is serious. Does he allow his players to be exposed to a disease that has killed more than 1 million people, or does he risk serious burnout and potential injuries from a prolonged training camp, 8-week, 9-week, 10-week training camp? Here's what he said.
That's a hindsight decision. I mean, yeah, it'd be pretty easy for me to say right now that I regret it. I also feel like if I keep a team hemmed up here for a 6 or 7 week training camp, that I probably would regret that too. And so I think the reality is our players are not going to be in this facility all the time. That is the reality. We don't have a bubble. We don't have a hotel that we can put them in and not let them out other than to go to class and come here. And so for us, it's going to be, we as a staff, we as a team have to do a better job of educating and mitigating as much as we possibly can when they're outside of this facility. And it's got to be a learning experience for us. I mean, it's I don't classify it as just that, because obviously this is serious, and having guys infected, we take that incredibly serious, as serious as you possibly can. But we do have to learn from this, and what we've learned up to this point is when they're here, we've done a pretty good job. We got to continue to do well and get better. When they're out of here, that's been the most danger. And I think, what you referenced in terms of students coming back, I think that's a concern of every single college football coach in the country right now, is how is that managed? Because, the numbers game becomes much more difficult any way you slice it when these students all get back to campus, like what's happening here at our university right now. So do I regret it at the end of the day? I know why we made the decision, and at the end of the day, our players and our staff, when we're out of this facility, have got to do a great job, whether it's a 2-day break or whether we're just out of there for a night and back in the morning. It's the same decisions and the same protocols that we have to go through. We have to be diligent, and this is obviously a great example of that.
Let's be honest, Lincoln Riley doesn't get a lot of actual football questions this year, so I kind of wanted to give him a little break and ask him an actual football question about the quarterbacks. We all love quarterbacks, right? Love to talk about them. These guys, Tanner Mordecai and Spencer Rattler, are being asked to compete and win the job and step up and be leaders in an unprecedented time of crisis. So I asked Lincoln how they were handling that. Here's what he said.
So now that you've actually had Spencer getting one reps in practice for an extended period of time, what qualities do you like in him so far that you've seen of him, Lincoln? Maybe he's doing something better now than he did when spring started. And then an additional question about the area of leadership. It's such a strange time. You're breaking in a new quarterback, a young guy who's got to kind of display those leadership qualities. How's that coming along?
Yeah, I could tell, John, a big difference with those guys, and that they really took advantage of the time that we were away. I think those guys really came back in a good place mentally. All the different Zoom meetings, as maddening as it was to hop on a screen like this every single day, and that's all you could do, knowing that you could have been out there in spring football. I mean, that was tough. But there was also an opportunity to cover and spend so much more time with them than we would have ever had. And the hope is you see some of those results when you actually get back on the field. And, granted, we haven't been through just a terribly long stretch yet, but you can tell Tanner, Spencer, and then even Chandler, those guys are a lot further ahead than I think they would have been without all that time. So I've been pleased with the way those guys have played, excited about their progress, and I'm so excited to get the next several weeks under their belt and continue to push more. Yeah, from a leadership standpoint, no, you're right. It's an interesting time for any leader, especially, all of these guys who are young quarterbacks and young leaders in our program. I think it's also provided those some opportunities for them to kind of step up and become leaders. And I see strong leadership characteristics with all those guys. They do it a little bit differently. They have different personalities. Spencer's a little bit more laid back. Tanner's a little bit more kind of not locked in, but a little bit more serious of a personality. Chandler maybe somewhere in between, but the thing you see is they're willing. They're not scared to lead. They're not scared to step up to the front of the line and assert themselves, which I think is the courage to do it and the willingness to do it, to me, are important. And they all three have that.
That's it for today. Lots and lots and lots more over at sisooners.allsooners.com. Please don't forget to go subscribe to my other channel. If you're able to do that today, thank you. And don't forget, at sisooners.allsooners.com, all our content is free. It's easy and it's fun. Follow me on Twitter at John E. Hoover or on Facebook, John E. Hoover Media. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. See you guys.